Inigo Muniz, he's done it again. Oh, what a lovely goal. And I'm delighted for Sasha Lukic. It's his first goal for the club and he'll love that. The Hammersmith enders are on their feet. It's Muniz again. Fulham 3-0 ahead.
Hello and welcome to the That's So Craven podcast, your Fulham podcast from Down Under. We're back again, this time to discuss the game against Man City, the early kickoff on the Saturday. Fortunately, everyone was nice and home early from this one, didn't have to stretch it out, maybe got to the pub after the game, drowned the sorrows a little bit. A 4-0 defeat, all as expected really, let's be perfectly honest. This is the team that's probably going to walk in with the title, one of the best teams in the world, one of the best teams possibly ever assembled. Can we be that disappointed with a 4-0 loss? Maybe. We'll talk about it today. Firstly, we've got Dave with us. How are we going, Dave?
Oh, I'm just living the dream, Jack. You know, this morning I've unblocked a sewage drain outside, and then I had to wash the dog because she rolled in something repugnant in the park, and now I get to relive yesterday's 4-0 loss at home. I mean, could life get any better, I ask you? But no, all in all, weather's nice here in the UK, and despite the football, had quite a nice day yesterday. I think a lot of Fulham fans probably had a nice time after the game yesterday. You know, it's been a decent season, hasn't it? And yeah, it's nice as well to be back on the mic. And it's been a few weeks since I've been on the That's So Craven podcast, and yeah, just delighted to be back in. Unfortunately, it's not a win, but, you know, we can take what we can out of it, can't we?
Love that. I also love the fact that your day has consisted of unblocking shit, washing shit, and now it's going to be talking about shit. So it's a trifecta. Sammy, how are we going today?
You had a perfect opportunity of speaking of shit. Sammy's here too. Honestly, this intro has been hilarious. I've just been very much enjoying myself just listening to you two rattle on. Look, all I asked for was that Skibby had a nice sunny day, and by all accounts, he had a nice sunny day. And yeah, let's get into this shit show. But I'm loving the energy from you two. This is I'm setting myself up for a good time.
We sound like that Sheffield United podcast that Skibby was on earlier this year, despite the fact that we're actually safe and not getting relegated. It's not a fun one to talk about. Let's be perfectly honest, a loss against Man City, but we've got some practice about it, seeing as that is now a Premier League record, 16 consecutive losses to the same side. No team in Premier League history has ever done that before, which is a great stat. But, geez, we cannot get anything against Man City. Last time we took even a point off them was the 2011 season. It's been a long time. And, look, early doors, I thought it might be on the cards that we pull something off. But, geez, it really pulled away from us. Before we do crack in and actually talk about the game itself, let's just do another mention of the That's So Craven Discord we've got going at the moment. Really great to see so many people jumping in there and interacting with us and just joining in with some general banter. Good stuff on match days. We've also managed to get a little bit of streaming help during the match days as well. So if you're ever looking for a live stream for the game, we do have the ability to point one out for you. Really great interactions with Cottage Tactico, Fulham Fan News, really good Fulham accounts online that are using the Discord and interacting, answering your questions as well, which is just, it's such a good thing to have. And I'm really enjoying the little community we're building there. Guys, your thoughts on the Discord now? It's been around for a couple of weeks.
Yes, I've been quite enjoying it, actually. We've managed to pull in some star power, haven't we, from Fulham Twitter. We've got Fulham Fan News, we've got Coach Tactico, just to name a couple off the top of my head. And everyone's contributing. There's been some great chats on there. So, yes, please, listeners, viewers, just open your mouth so we can stuff Fulham Discord right down your throats. And it is free and you will enjoy it.
I can't follow that. It's too good. It's too good. I mean, there was a bit of a pause, but then, oh my God, Dave, can I have some of what you're on? I've got work tomorrow.
When the sun shines, I wake up and I feel bright. And especially because yesterday, you know, we've despite the loss and despite the run of form, I think that's 1 win and 8 now, isn't it, for Fulham? A bit disappointing.
Yeah,
very disappointing. At least yesterday wasn't about getting 3 points and staying in the league. You know, it's just nice to be able to kind of put it behind us and just look forward to the summer now.
And that's so true. I mean, it's not a great result. Let's be perfectly honest. But like you say, we've had one win from the last 8, but even then, we're not being dragged into a relegation battle. And admittedly, that is because the 3 teams who are getting relegated are some of the worst teams I've seen in the Premier League for a long time. Let's be perfectly honest. But it is kind of refreshing to have this season where, you know, probably 8 games ago, we knew that we were going to be safe, realistically.
Yeah.
I think I remember after about 15 or 16 games, us having a chat like this and basically saying, I just can't see us going down because there are 3 teams who are far worse than us, a couple of teams who've got points deductions as well. We're going to be safe, and it's turned out that way. And yes, I agreed. Like we don't need to worry about results like this. If anything, it's actually part of the learning process for next season, looking at how we can potentially improve. And I think that's something that definitely keen to talk about today. Is there's a lot of areas for improvement, I think. And look, it's tough to judge a team after playing Man City because they're Man City, but there were definitely some weak points during the game yesterday that I do want to talk about. And Dave, you're in the ground. Let's talk about the first sort of 15 minutes or so, though. Fulham actually looked very good.
Yeah, we did. We started the game really positively, didn't we? And you know, we were trying to take in the game to them, and that's kind of what we needed to do. You know, I often think when you play in the top teams, you need to go after them and try and get a goal. I think any Premier League game, if you can get a goal up, you know, you're in with a chance. I was hoping. I mean, before the game, I was really hoping to see Adama because I just felt like the team needed a spark, and he might have been able to provide that. And I think we've seen in recent weeks, you know, our wingers that have been starting haven't really been doing the business like they have been previously in the season. So I thought that was a bit disappointing. But yeah, we did start the game well, and it was just until we conceded that first goal, which was, you know, a little bit of a mess defensively, I thought. And after that, it just felt like there was only going to be one winner, if I'm honest. But the crowd were great yesterday. You know, we started the game really well, really enthusiastic. Of course, the weather helped. Of course, the fact that we're safe helped. But yeah, it just that first goal really killed us, I thought.
It did feel competitive. It felt competitive. It felt like we were in it. There was a point where I was just like, this press seems to be pushing us back more and more. I think if we're being really, really honest, it did feel like a goal was inevitably coming. But at the same time, like, you still kind of reserve yourself until it actually happens. And look, you can put it potentially down to bad defending, but you can also put it down to a brilliant assist from Kevin De Bruyne. So I'm just going to lean that way a little bit more. I think I sleep better when I get completely outclassed by KDB. But I don't know. What's your guys' take on that?
Well, what I was going to say before we do jump into that goal, just your thoughts on the team selection, because we ran a poll beforehand asking who you'd like to see start for this game. And look, Harrison Reed was the runaway winner and kind of who I think most people expected. Tom Cairney was next on the list. Sorry, Alex Iwobi to start in the centre mid was kind of shocking to me. He's obviously better when he's out on the wing. And we've seen with Decordova-Reid, he's probably not quite as effective as he has been in the last few seasons. And definitely somewhere where we need to strengthen, I think, going forward. But do you feel like that was the right decision? I know BDR does tend to drop back into those defensive duties and help out, and maybe that was the reason why he was picked. But Dave, I'll throw to you first. Would you have liked to have seen Reed start and Iwobi out wide, or were you happy with the starting 11 that Silva put out?
I had the feeling he was going to play Iwobi. In the poll, I picked Iwobi because I thought he would bring in Traore on the right. What I didn't expect to see was Bobby Reed starting, and my immediate thought was that's a little negative. And as I said before, I felt we needed to go after them and try and get the first goal. So as much as I love Bobby, I don't think he's quite got the ability to kind of cause City problems. Down that side, and I just think it was a bit of a missed opportunity. Interesting the way we lined up, because it felt like Pereira dropped deeper at the start of the game,
Really
was coming
deep.
to collect the ball. Yeah, and I remember a few weeks back on the pod, Skibby mentioned he'd like to see Pereira in a bit of a deeper role and thought he'd influence the game more. And if we're going to take positives out of the game, I thought he played okay, and in doing so, I thought he came back, linked up play quite nicely, and tried to get the ball forward and out wide. He wasn't a culprit yesterday, I don't think. In fact, I thought there was some encouragement there, and I'd quite like to see that system again with Pereira and Iwobi, and both of them taking turns to drop in and collect. I thought, again, maybe against a weaker side, that might be quite effective.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, especially against the weaker side. I could definitely see kind of what Silvers was doing. I mean, I thought the entire logic behind having Bobby there was literally just because Bobby scores goals. We know that Bobby can score goals, so then that does give him a bit of an edge over Traore because he's tried and tested. It really didn't work though, and I love Bobby. I love seeing Bobby with the armband. It feels right to me. I like it a lot, but I mean, Bobby is at the end of an amazing tenure with us, but he was just so outclassed by City, and that's not a knock on Bobby. I think, it almost felt a little bit like harsh of Silva to kind of put him out there. And you know what? Credit to Silva, he made a lot of changes pretty early on in the game, a lot more radical changes than he would typically do, just to like change things up. And I did appreciate that, but yeah, Bobby shouldn't have started for me. And the Iwobi thing was weird. I can kind of see it. I think Silva just wanted to basically put out every single person that he knew was capable of scoring out on the pitch, just to basically get that early goal. I think that's what the logic was. But again, I barely ever know how Silva thinks.
Well, the Cottage Tactico's already started analysing the game, and he does make a point, and it is the reason Bobby gets picked more often than not is the fact that he does drop back to effectively become a right back, and Castagna goes central, meaning we are able to play five at the back, and then Bobby does go forward, although he's not exactly bombing forward. No. And, he's not the fastest, he's not the strongest. So it's almost would have been better with the Dharma, who has played right wing back before, to actually take up that role and say to him, look, you're on defensive duties today. We want to see you bombing forward, but really, first and foremost, you're there for defensive reasons. And then you can play him in behind. I think that would have been much more interesting. Around the Pereira point, though, as well, because I agree. I love seeing Pereira drop deep when he picks up the ball deep in our half. He sort of Tom Candy-esque in a way, how he controls the game and sees passes and opens the game up for us. What are the thoughts then next season of Pereira potentially dropping deep into that central role alongside João, and us effectively signing someone to sit in front of them? Maybe that's someone like Jay Stansfield playing off Muniz's shoulder. Because I really like the idea of Pereira sitting deeper and controlling the game a little bit. Or, new signing, someone like Stansfield potentially coming in and taking that role on. Or do we think maybe Pereira would be wasted if he was that deep permanently, effectively?
Oh, I completely disagree with him being wasted in that position. If anything, I want Andreas to have as much control over the game as he can possibly have. I really like him in an attacking position, but him a little bit deeper, it benefits everyone just because I just like the way he pulls the strings a little bit. I mean, really, I know it's quite far back, but to have the idea of maybe like a young, fresh Carvalho and then a Pereira, just think about that as like a lineup. That would be tasty. And I totally reckon Stansfield could do something like that. But Yeah, sorry. We've just had an abrupt entrance, so I'm thrown. But I am professional. Yeah, that's
Not professional.
I can
Professionals
totally see
ignore it.
that. Yeah, but it's staring me in the face. It's staring me in the face, and I wasn't prepared. Okay.
To add some context, Elson's just joined us on the live stream, 15 minutes late, but whatever, just rock up whenever you want.
Heavy breathing, just abrupt.
It's like Traore coming on in the second half to get this thing back on track. That's what it feels like with Elton joining us midway through.
How
A welcome addition.
That's professional. What Dave just
Professionals would ignore that, would just push through Sam and act like
professionals
it
would rock
didn't
up on
happen.
time.
Yeah, fickle.
I wasn't actually scheduled to be part of this. I just made myself available, and obviously fully fit and ready to play. So I've given a shirt.
Yeah.
It's kind of what we want to see from Adama. We want him to actually just barge his way onto the field when he should be on. Just come in and say, no, actually, Bobby, you're off, mate. Come on.
Just walk around the other side in front of the Johnny Haynes and just drag him off.
Great to have you, Dad, I guess.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone.
And Elton, actually, I'm going to upset you now. Actually, you've just arrived. I'm going to upset you because we're just talking about the team and the first half performance. And so I've just noticed Steve Reynolds has just popped a comment on the chat. And I thought we've just talked about Bobby and Bobby's role yesterday, but actually on the other side, I've got to say, in the last couple of months, and it's not just kind of off the back of the Brentford game and yesterday, but I think that we're already missing Willian's impact a little bit. I don't think he's in the last few months been the same player as he had been the previous 18 months. And I feel like he's on the pitch, but I'm kind of missing what he was doing for us when he was in better form, those months back. And that, him coming off at half time really wasn't a surprise. So I know he's your favourite, Elton. I'm sorry to upset you, but I just thought we had to mention that. It's a great point by Steve there.
I actually thought what you were going to say in your build-up was, the last couple of months, I've been watching it, and actually, you're really shit, Elton. That's what I thought you were going to say.
I would never say that.
I feel a bit sorry for my favourite player. I'm not sure what it is. I mean, the Brentford game was absolutely, so out of character and so off his normal form. It was concerning, almost like there's something, badly wrong. I don't think he was anything like his form in the Brentford game yesterday. And maybe it's the City opposition is too harsh to judge him against, because I think a lot of people were struggling out there. Not struggling, but they're a good side, and it's very difficult to have a huge impact. Although I thought, I've been listening, so you don't have to fill me in here. I've been following along, but I do think that we acquitted ourselves pretty well for most of the first half of the first half, if you like. I thought we looked all right. If we'd nicked a goal somehow, it could have been really interesting, but not to be.
I think it's a fair point though around Willian. He's definitely seemed off, and I've seen other people making the point about Polina as well, potentially looking a little bit off. The point was made. He came to 13 yellow cards. I think it was probably 4 or 5 games ago, and since that point, he's looked. I don't know if he's eased off a bit. Admittedly, he put in some very hard tackles yesterday, especially the one for the second goal, but. He's not looking the same Polina that was about to move to Bayern for 50 million. And I know he makes a lot of tackles and he's key to what we do. But if I was Bayern, I'd probably be looking elsewhere realistically, because I don't think he's playing like, compare him to someone like Declan Rice, who's had a great season at Arsenal. I think what Polina offers is very, very different and not worth the same amount that it was previously. I'd now say if we received an offer of around 50 for Polina, I'd be snapping it up, because I think that's actually way over his market value at the moment, which I'd say is probably closer to the sort of 25-30 mark, I'd say. Sammy?
I don't disagree with you. I think that point does have validity, but I do just want to bring up, like, can you ever really be at your absolute best when you've got a flat being built next door to your house? He's had no consistent partnerships all season. It's been constantly changing around him. So I don't think he's had like a lot of he's had to deal with a lot of unnecessary turbulence. And for that, I don't necessarily think I can fully judge him and I can't really expect the absolute best from him because I just don't necessarily think he's had the most comfortable season in that sense. That's obviously coming from an extreme bias because I love the man, but I do agree. If we were offered about 50 to 60 for him, I think that would probably be best, and then we can maybe move towards a slightly different system and build from there.
I just think we need to have some caution in being too down on players and the whole side yesterday. We played Man City, who had a lot to play for. Let's be honest. They weren't just turning up, cruising into the end of their season. They had a lot to play for. Put out
Yeah,
a
of
very
course.
good side. I didn't actually think Zhao was that bad yesterday. I thought his work rate was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that he's been bad. He's just, Zhao's level is 10. And I reckon we've seen like a 7 from him, which is still great. And is still one of our better players on the pitch. But you just feel like there's that extra level that he could get to. And if he is getting to that level, maybe it's a 2-0 loss yesterday. And maybe we don't lose some of the games we have or draw some of the games you have this year. And we pick up that extra few points over the last couple of months that make a little bit of a difference in the final ladder.
I think, football's a team game, and everyone works in pairs or in sort of systems, in the part of the ground that they assign to, if you like. But particularly in the midfield, it's really, really important. I suppose to Sam's point, it's very, very important that he's got a partner. And from the outset, he had a Iwobi to try something new. Happy with that for yesterday. That's fine, but it put even more pressure on him. I'm defending him viciously here because I think he had a pretty tough day yesterday. He didn't have a lot of defensive support in midfield at all.
Do you know what, Elton? I kind of agree with you. I actually thought our midfield didn't play that bad yesterday. They just came up against one of the best midfields the Premier League's ever seen, didn't they? And City were. I think it's right to point out that City were, fantastic on the day, and probably the best team. Well, definitely the best team I've seen at Craven Cottage this season. And I don't necessarily think it was the midfield where we lost the game, if that makes sense. I thought I couldn't really criticize any of the three in there who I thought all put in effort and tried to make things happen and defend where they could. I think just perhaps tactically we didn't quite approach the game in the right sense, and we tried to address that at half time. And then the other point I think I'm sure we'll come on to anyway was I think it really highlighted yesterday how important it is that we replace Tosin in the side, because I felt that Diop's performance really showed that that's a position that we need to upgrade. I don't think he had a good game. I thought he made some quite a few mistakes, and the first goal in particular, I'm not quite sure what he was doing, but he got nowhere near Gvardiol in able to block the shot. But then, there were other points as well during the game. I think the third goal, he didn't get out quick enough to block it. The second goal, when Foden scored, he didn't get out quick enough to block that. And then, of course, the penalty at the end for the fourth goal. And I just think that shows really an area that we need to strengthen.
100%.
It's kind of, cliche, I guess, but what gets a little depressing about a game like yesterday is that first goal was a good goal, great individual effort, and really well worked. I mean, you can't get too depressed about that.
No.
But the other goals, obviously the last one a penalty, but the other goals, like Foden scuffed it for me. It was his wrong foot. He didn't actually hit it that well. A couple of inches more that uh, hits the upright on slightly the wrong angle, doesn't go in. But if you're that good aside, you're going to create that many opportunities that some of those are going to go in. And just the sheer rate of number of opportunities with high quality players peppering you, it's just going to get overwhelmed and overpowered. And so, I mean, it's difficult. But I'm very firmly in the fact that I know it's the end of the season. We haven't had a good run into the end of the season for a number of reasons. What have we won one game since the international break?
1 in 8.
Yeah, it's not been good at all. And I know it's easy to dump on Marco saying that this is a recurring theme, but I just think it's probably multiple factors. And to end with City at home, everyone wanted a better day out than that. But they were on a big mission and they're a very, very good side. And I don't know that we could possibly have expected a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be a tough challenge against a side like City, especially with how much was at stake for them. Let's talk about the goals themselves. Obviously, we've touched on the first goal. It's a brilliant finish, but what has to be said is Guardiola's a centre-back, and he looks like a Barcelona central midfielder, the way he just scythes through our back line. Castagna gets completely befuddled by the run that he makes. Diop gets sidestepped completely and basically may as well be sitting down by the end of the move. It's a good finish, although he's not exactly smashed it into the back of the net. He's sort of wrong-footed Leno and dribbled it into the back of the net. But look, could Fulham have done better there? I'd say probably. And I think I don't know if Tosin would have done better personally, but I think a new signing at centre-back is just so key and vital, because we really are, the depth is not there, because Tim Ream comes in, maybe he reads the game slightly better than most of our defenders and maybe makes a difference, but I'd say he probably gets caught out by the pace of it all. And yeah, it's just blaringly obvious, and it happened for the rest of the game as well. The second goal, the fact that ball falls to Foden after Polina's made what is a very long, slow but hard slide tackle that could have easily been a penalty as well. And yeah, it just feels like the defense should be pouncing on that, and instead Diop is sort of standing around watching. The third goal, the ball comes into the back post and no one's tracking it at all, and almost 2 City players get on the end of it. And look, I think Leno potentially should have done a little bit better there to keep that one out. But again, it's poor defensive marking. The fourth goal is a stupid tackle from Diop, didn't need to be made. He's just completely mistimed it and taken the player, and it's all round. I think I agree with you that across the midfield, even the attacking players didn't do a huge amount wrong through the game, especially with the lack of chances that we actually had. But the defence had issues. I think Robinson was good. I think Bassi was fairly good for the game. Castagna didn't have a great game for me, admittedly a tough test against Foden and with Guardiola overlapping, and Diop had a really poor game. Dave, I'll throw to you first. Your thoughts on the defence, because as I said, the rest of the team actually seems to do a pretty good job.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the way you summed that up there was, accurate. I thought Diop struggled with the occasion. I mean, he did fairly good job, with Haaland, I thought, like getting close to him throughout the game. But other than that, it's just too many sloppy mistakes, and they've led to goals, and that's a concern. And I think you're right about Castagna. I think he found the game a bit difficult. I don't think it was a dreadful performance, but I think we just got so used to him putting in 7 out of 10s every week. If he's slightly off it kind of stands out. But yeah, Robinson and Bassi, I thought they had a decent game. The one player I felt sorry for yesterday actually was Muniz up front. I felt like, he was up against 2 centre-backs, not a lot of support around him for the entire game. He was getting manhandled quite a lot throughout the game too.
Yeah.
I thought,
Yeah.
and I just
No
felt that
favours.
with all that effort he put in, and then to get hooked at 66 minute for a lone player, I was a bit disappointed by that, if I'm honest. And I just felt a bit sorry for him, really, that that his maybe afternoon's work maybe hasn't gone well noticed. But yeah, other than that, I agree with your observations on defence for sure.
I
It
also
really,
think that many of following all of his hard work, he laid off a couple of really good balls, and no one was on the same wavelength, and it nothing went from there. But no, look, I can also appreciate that when you're playing a really good side and everyone is just having to work at another level, it is up another level, and that just pressurizes everyone. And it's not that surprising that things fall apart. It's like those things where, that opportunity that Bobby gets running forward, and he tries to hook it down, and he just completely messes it up. And maybe, if you're playing, I don't know, against a Brentford, he's just under less pressure, and maybe he pulls that off. It's one of those things. Go ahead, Sam.
I think as well. I think it probably would have been quite clear instructions from Silva to Diop and Bassi. Watch Haaland. Don't give Haaland an inch. And to their credit, they did do that. But there was just a lot more happening in the game, and that's always going to happen against City. And they and this comes down to like footballing intelligence. Ream was always amazing at this when he was at top flight, because he was never the fastest, but he was able to always read the game really, really well and just kind of pick up the ebbs and flows. Diop's not very good at doing that. And if he has time, he can contribute quite well. But in a game like this, where there's so many moving parts, and you had to constantly adapt to like the game state, it really didn't reflect very well. And I thought Bassi, was all right, and Robinson was all right. But when you have a centre back who I'm really trying hard not to be like too negative and mince my words, but basically he just didn't necessarily give Castagna a fair go, because he I don't want to say like ball watching, but he just really wasn't the mustard,
Yeah, no, totally agree. A lot of chat post game, and look, I'm pretty happy to move on from the game. I think we got soundly beaten by a better side. Let's be perfectly honest here. There's not a huge amount more to analyze. And some people were maybe saying that we were being a little unfair on Fulham, saying we didn't play that well. I don't think Fulham played badly. I think you have to tip your hat to a team like Man City, who are always going to beat mid-table sides, and sometimes not Fulham, but sometimes mid-table sides do upset the big dogs. But realistically, with the way Man City play, very patient, slow, and skillful style, it's very hard to break down, very hard to stop them from scoring. And look, they like to score against us, especially. That's 9 goals we conceded to City this year. And it's proof we're not a crap team. We beat Arsenal this year. We beat Man United this year. We're a decent side. But Man City are just another level. So I think we can draw a line under that one and say it's a shame we played them so late in the season when you want to be celebrating. Would have rather had them about 8 or 9 weeks ago and been able to move on from that much, much sooner and not feel like the end of the season's a bit of a damp squib. But a lot of chat on Twitter after the game about the state of the squad. And I want to go into this in more depth after the end of the season, but just quickly for you guys, based on performances yesterday and across the rest of the season, and players who actually were on the pitch yesterday, who do you feel should be moved on at the end of the season? It feels like there's a lot of chat about Marco Silva already coming up, or sitting down with the people who matter and deciding budgets for the transfer window. There's already talk of transfer targets for us as well, which doesn't usually happen at this stage of the season if you're a Fulham fan. It feels like there's going to be a bit of an overhaul, and I see a lot of players going out the door. Dave, I'll throw to you first. Maybe give me a couple of players who you think it's time to move on from. And it might be one of those ones where you have to let go of players that you really love for the betterment of the squad in whole.
Are you trying to make me say Kenny Tete, one of my all-time favourite players? Is that what you're trying to make me do here, Jack? No,
I'm not. If you want to,
no, I think that obviously we did the summer planning session a couple of months ago, which is a really good session where we looked at it all, and I think my views changed there. I think a lot of the players that are out of contract this summer, I can't foresee as any of them staying at present. And I think that there are a few other players in the squad who might seek, pastures new. There was a little bit of talk actually in the stand yesterday that apparently Traore wants to get more football. And there was a link for him leaving in the week. I remember seeing on the Discord transfer page. So it might be something in that. You've got to think of people like Harrison Reed, who, last season was a first team player. This season's been a bit part player. He's in the prime of his career. He probably wants to play football. And we probably want to try other things in that area. So you've got to think he might move on. For me, I'd really like, I don't think the Jimenez experiment has been a success. I thought it was a strange signing at the time, 5 million for 32-year-old. He's now 33. He's commanding such a big wage. And I think given that Marco was quite honest with how he sees Stansfield coming into the side next year, and, giving us some, strengthening our attacking options there, whether that be from wide or up front, I think we almost need another similar striker to Muniz, to challenge Muniz. And I don't think that's Jimenez. So I think he's the one that really needs to make way for that person. Obviously the people like Vinicius and the likes are also, I don't see a future for them here. But you're right. When you start talking it through, you start to realize, actually, that's quite a lot of players. And the club's going to have to, really be quite active to replace these on quite a strict budget because of, as we all know, PSR. So it's going to be really interesting. And all I will say is I'm really excited by Stansfield and what Silva said about him in the week. I think that almost feels like a new signing in a way. I know he's our player already, but, he's not really played for us, of course. He's coming from a really successful championship season. And he's a player that's going to give 150% when he steps on that pitch. So I think that's really exciting, but there's plenty more to do, isn't there?
I think as well, because I think it's worth noting that there's actually lots of players that we currently have at work that do work in the Silva system. I mean, Pereira works, Castagna works, Leno works, Muniz works. There is a lot of positives there. So it's not just like a dump all your toys just because you want to play an entirely new game. There's pretenses there for something better. Steve Reynolds actually in the comments, I pretty much agree with absolutely everything that he said. So he's highlighted Willian, Wilson, Reed, Jimenez, Tete, as we discussed, and dare I say TC. And I'll go on record. I'll be the unpopular one. I appreciate deeply everything that Tom Cairney's done. And for the past couple of seasons, he has had a role to play. But I think in relying on him to play that role, we've potentially missed out on new up-and-coming signings that we could have brought in just because we were leaning on the fact that Cairney could do that. And I understand the nostalgia. I understand the tried-and-tested argument. But we should really be looking forward in Silva's kind of vision. And I would like to see who Silva would replace Cairney with than to hold on to him.
I'm still back at the door trying to really understand how all of this is going to work. I have very little confidence that we're ready to spend a lot of money, that the Khans have actually got the ambition and are ready to back that up. I mean, the way I see it is that I cannot see between Ali Mack, Mr. and Junior Khan, any one of those three guys giving a shit as to who and which player stays or goes.
I agree with you, but we're talking should
hold
right
on.
now.
Hold on. So you've got to have that commitment to spend the money up to the level that PSR is going to allow you to. But if you clear out a bunch of these players, sell some of them, let some of them go, release some wage obligations, whatever, and factor in the Metro adjustment, which I don't think we've had the benefit of yet, there's got to be some money to spend, but you've got to be prepared to spend it. You know, we could have spent Metro money a year ago, or not a year ago, maybe 9 months ago, because we had time. We had time before the end of the window. We could have spent it, but we didn't. Who knows?
The Metro money actually fell outside of that PSR period, so we weren't able to spend that money.
Okay. I still need convincing that there is ambition, that and a willingness to spend money. I when I look at the books and I see the the capitalization of their loans and writing off loans, turning them into shares, which is a generous thing to do for an owner. Don't have to do that. They can sit there and have their loans outstanding. I understand the implications in terms of PSR. That's a good thing for them to be doing, but it also shows commitment. And in a way, they're spending money by doing that because they're literally tearing up loans and converting it into equity. That's actually a very positive thing. But in terms of spending new cash, oh, look, if we really mean it, if we really, really, really mean it to push on, and, you tell me the number, Jack, that you think we've got to spend, let's call it, if we let all those players go, we're ready to spend 50, 60 million pounds. You would let Wilson, Reed, Jimenez, Vinicius, maybe Tete, and maybe Tom Kearney. You would let them go and pick up, 6 or 7 players, that many.
Well, I think anyone who's out of contract is realistically not getting their contract renewed at this stage. I think Willian, with getting 100,000 a week or whatever he's on, is probably out the door, especially with a lot of links to wingers recently. I'd say he's apparently he's got offers from a couple of clubs in London already as well. So I reckon Chelsea might be sniffing around looking for him as a free transfer because they obviously can't spend that much money. Jimenez, 100,000 a week has been. I know he scored a couple of goals and he's done a few bits and pieces, but he's got to go out the door. Vinny has to go out the door as well. Harrison Reed, Wilson, Tete. I think they've been great servants to the squad, but I just don't see a future for them realistically. If you're looking at strengthening to go to the next level, they are not at that next level and therefore have to sort of be sacrificed, if you will. I'd say the same for Decordova Reed, possibly even someone like Adama. He's been underutilized. He obviously doesn't fit into the system that Silva wants him to play in. But if we talk, and obviously Tosin's out the door, Tim Ream potentially, I think he's still got a year left on his contract, but realistically, is he going to want to play a bit of football before he goes, or do they want him to stay around the club? It might even be like a mutual termination at the end of the season because he's not getting an opportunity, and I assume we're going to be signing centre-backs. We're talking about, Willian, Wilson, Reed, Jimenez, Vinny, Tete, BDR, Tosin. There's 8 players going out. Admittedly, we'll get Stansfield back, and maybe Luke Harris has proved enough to sit on the bench more often, but we're going to have to make 7 signings minimum in the summer. And I know you say there's no faith there, but I do have a little bit of faith that it's been reported in the media that Marco has had the sit down and started talking about budgets because, yes, I know that doesn't mean that signings are going to come straight away or that they're going to be coming quicker than last time, but at least we're being a little bit more proactive than we have done previously. We're already being linked with players, which usually for Fulham doesn't happen until July, August kind of time. So it does feel like there's a little bit more happening, and we knew we were safe months ago, realistically. So I assume all the stuff that has usually happened in June, July actually happened in March, April this year, and has brought the timeline forward a little bit.
Let's be very clear here. We're not trying to become Man City or Liverpool or Arsenal overnight, but I think our ambition should be to step it up. And if we wanted to be, say, for example, at the level that Villa are playing, I think that would be a fair kind of ambition. We need to make some big changes and be fairly brutal.
I think as well though, and I will sing this tune for as long as I can. If you have a good system, and Silva has proven that he has a good system, you don't necessarily have to spend crazy amounts of money on players.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to spend money on players that fit your system. And Silva has proven that he's capable of doing that. So we don't necessarily need to hang on to players who aren't fitting that system when we have the option to actually... I mean, we might actually only need to spend about 30 or 40 million. I understand that that's still a huge amount of money, but
it's not.
It's not. That's the thing. It's huge in that football. Outside of football terms, but that's
if we're talking
really
seven players for 30 million. You're stealing those players. On to move.
Just
not that we couldn't.
Well, I don't even think you're stealing them though, because there's plenty of players that just are good, but they just don't fit the system that they're in.
No, not for 4 million. You can't buy anyone for £4 million now. You buy Raul Jimenez. That's it. And look, I'll just jump in. You mentioned Villa before. Villa have spent about 170 million over the last 2 seasons. So it's not like they've been smart. They've spent a shitload of money. That's the way to actually take that next step. And yes, you do have some smart signings in there that are bargains, like but they signed Moussa Diaby for 50 million. They signed Pau Torres for 32 million. The season before, great deal. They got Yuri Tielemans on a free. That's the kind of deals that we need to be looking at is transfers like that. But realistically, you can't actually keep up with other sides like that unless you spend that money. Diego Carlos, 26 million. Dendoncker, 13 million. Coutinho, 17 million. Like, these are big money transfers that they've spent the money on, and that's kind of the only way that you can do it. And so really, Fulham just, unless we open the pockets and spend that money and spend 150 million, we're not going to be able to do it. But the problem I see is that the Khans were burnt last time they spent that much money. We got relegated. So you need to also have a lot of faith in Marco and have a lot of faith in your scouting system.
I think they do, because effectively Villa have done a good Forest, right?
Yeah. Look, it can't.
Forest spent a lot of money and they haven't done very well.
Well, look, if you're going to spend a lot of money, you can pretty much guarantee that you can do it with Silva, because if you gave Silva the same budget,
I think they believe in. I think they believe that he can do it, but I just don't know they're ready to make the commitment.
Well, you would have to by now, because otherwise he goes.
The last couple of transfer windows, I think we've spent about 60 to 70 million on the squad. So it seems to be the area the club feel quite confident in for PSR purposes. Now, obviously, after next season, the PSR rules change again, don't they? It's going to be the 85% of turnover. And if we're currently over that, we're going to have that in mind. We're going to have to work our way towards that figure to be compliant the year after. So we might have to be quite clever with how we spend our money. And I think it's a mixture. I think we probably have to identify some real quality targets. I think right centre back and on the wing is the priority personally. And we need to bring in, that might come at a cost. But if we've got quite a lot of other squad places to fill, then we've got to be quite clever. We're going to have to look at that free transfer market to see if there is another Tielemans out there that this time we can attract. We might have to look at the Championship for some of the standout players there to see if we can pick, up a few players at a decent price that have got potential to come in and fit the system, as Sam said before. So I think there's going to be, we need to be clever with what we spend, but we certainly need to do it.
Marco is clever. We need another
Mhm.
midfielder as well, by the way.
I think so, too.
Marco is clever.
Well, on top of that, there's 3 sides getting relegated, and there's a handful of very good players in there. I think Hamer and Sander Berge at Burnley, Hamer at Sheffield United. There's some decent players who would definitely do a job for us. It's just about it's about getting the balance right. We need to spend a lot of money realistically to take that next step, because as much as we probably enjoy being a mid-table club, we are a lower mid-table club, if we're perfectly honest.
Yeah.
A mid-table club, a real mid-table club, sort of sits between 8th and 12th. We're sitting just below that at the moment, and it just takes one little bad run, a few unfortunate injuries for us to drop into a relegation battle. So we do need to be a little bit careful. It's going to be a really busy summer and really interesting when we do finally come out and say who we're retaining at the end of the season and who we're letting go, because I feel like there's a clear out coming. It's been a while since we've had a proper clear out, let's be honest. I mean, the last one I can think of is, when we let go of Steph Joe, Kevin McDonald, those guys who sort of got us back up to the Premier League. And
just before we spent 100 million.
Yeah, well, it feels like it's coming, but to actually pull it off, it's a lot of planning to be done. And I hope that that's actually what's been happening over the last couple of months, because if that has been happening, I think we are actually potentially in for a really exciting summer where we pull in a lot of really fresh faces. We rejuvenate the average age of the squad, because it's an old squad at the moment, and those guys we're looking at releasing: Willian 36, Jimenez 33, Tete, I don't know how old Tete is. I think he's 28 or 29.
28, 29, yeah.
Harrison Reed is in his 30s now. Like, it actually, you replace all those guys with 24-year-olds, and all of a sudden it's a very young group around, especially when you got Stansfield coming in, Muniz potentially being a starter, Kearney sitting on the bench. And so, Paulinho, Pereira, these old heads at 28, 29, that's kind of what you're wanting, is a young, rejuvenated squad going into next season. And I'm hopeful, but what I'd love to see is us actually just 1st of July, when the transfer window opens, to actually see some action happening early doors, not having to wait 7 weeks until anything actually pops up on Sky Sports News saying Fulham have actually signed someone. Because I think if we leave it too late, we're just going to be absolutely buggered. We want a full pre-season with these guys, and if you don't get it, it's going to be mayhem. And we saw it at the start of last season. It was at the start of this season and last season. It was mayhem. We had to sign players because we were not a very good side at the start of the season.
And I was grunting and sweating the whole way.
Talk about average age of squad. The commentator on the stream last night mentioned Phil Foden, 22. Unbelievable.
I think got 86 goals or something like that as well.
And a lot of games. Amazing.
It's ridiculous. Actually ridiculous. Makes me sick.
Yep. Guys, look, I think we've fairly covered it all. I can't really think of much more that I actually want to talk about regarding this Man City game.
I have a topic if you've got another couple of hours, but
we've got about 7 minutes.
Condensed.
I'm going to say so. Go hard.
Let's talk about it. Is it? I don't know. I'm kind of I'm trying to be careful the way I say it, because it sounds like sour grapes. But I think I've said enough to give all the plaudits to City for a really great game, and they played well. They're a good side, but it's actually boring, and I think
100%.
This is really becoming a big problem for me in the Premier League. And it's kind of reminding me of days of women's tennis when Navratilova was, I think she was ranked number 1 for about 235 weeks. And there was such a massive difference between her and everyone else. And when Federer first came on the scene as well, it was a bit similar in tennis. And it's just boring. It's wonderful to watch. and everyone admires it, but it's boring. It's not what we actually go and support teams for, to be totally outclassed and to be schooled and almost to get a Harlem Globetrotters kind of demonstration performance against us, where they, as I said before, they scuff a few goals in, but they have that many opportunities, they invariably win by 4-0. It's boring, and I know that there's feigned efforts with PSR and squad cost rule, future changes coming in to try and manage some of that stuff, but it's just really difficult. It's not very good for the game. It's not very good for the Premier League at all to have one team head and shoulders. I mean, Arsenal, those other sides at the top, they're good, but they're beatable, and I don't feel overwhelmed when we come up against them. City, you've literally got no chance, and it's not good. It's not good for the game.
Well, Man U did have a similar level of dominance, and I do genuinely believe that when Pep leaves, they will kind of fall a little bit into disarray as much as a team like that actually can. Like, they'll probably still be floating around like top 4 spots, but I do think when Pep leaves, they will. It's just the nature of the game. They will have a demise, and I don't actually
win
think
the league every other year.
Yeah, it totally. But
I think if
it will create something a little.
And those players didn't leave, they'd still organise it in the change rooms amongst themselves and still thrash us.
I don't know about that. I genuinely don't know about that.
And they're very well drilled, but they're very brilliant individually as well.
Yeah.
Dave, what do you think?
Well, of course, I'm not as fussed about other teams and what than I am about Fulham. Fulham's like the number one priority. I want them to be successful and growing every year, and I couldn't really care too much about what the rest of the league do as long as they don't get in Fulham's way. I'm also bitter and twisted with things as well. Like, if City can just keep winning the league and hold the fort, then no one else has to win it and have any success. So they can have it, and then when we get good enough in the years to come, we can challenge them and finally be the team to take that mantle. I know that's complete nonsense and it's never going to happen, but that's kind of how my bitter and twisted brain works. I don't want anyone else to have success, just Fulham.
I want the name of your therapist, David. Because maybe I need to rewire myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree. Man City are boring. Let's be perfectly honest.
No.
They're very good, but they don't play attractive football. Like it's not like
really
watching Barcelona, who are tiki-taka, moving the ball around and cutting teams apart. They are patient and they can pick a pass, and they slowly tear you apart. But it's not exciting. I think it goes back to a conversation I think we've had previously, which is just I love being a Fulham fan kind of because of this. Like, it's kind of humbling in a way not to win every week. I think it would be boring if your team wins every week. Where's the excitement and joy of sitting down before a game and wondering if you're going to win? And the elation that you get when you do pull off those wins against Arsenal, the win against Man United this season, they're key memories for you, especially across the entirety of the season. Man City fans, not for me.
I do agree in that point with you, Jack. I think that the day that we win a trophy, oh my God, we are gonna. I mean, can you imagine? Yeah. We are gonna be euphoric. Dancing in the streets. Sam will have a bottle of Cinzano. Be down in it on the camera on the pod. Yeah, it will just be.
Live stream Sam's tattoo.
But
I wouldn't even question it. I would 100% do it. Like, if anything, I'm like holding out for a moment like that, and I'm just kind of like, I could get one already. But it would be better if we could just live stream that, just for like monetization stuff.
Of course, it would be great. And I'm just saying, but City, they've got the FA Cup final at the end of this one. If they win that,
what does it mean?
What does it mean? It's just another FA Cup trophy. I mean, I'm sure they'll have a nice day, but they won't.
It's an interesting point, because I saw someone on Twitter saying, my son's crying because we didn't win the FA Cup this year, and people talking about it and stuff, and then realizing that this boy is a 10-year-old Man City fan, and all he's ever known is that they win every single trophy. So he's crying because they should be winning that trophy. But it just
Spoiled.
it's so like
Spoiled
well, you're
brat.
kind of spoiled. It's not his fault that he supports Man City, obviously, but it's kind of nuts that people live that life where you just expect to win every game, and get so upset when you don't win a cup. Like, you just be thankful that you're there in the first place, because not many teams get to do that. We're still waiting for years and years to get to a cup final, especially like an FA Cup final. We've made one. And Man City have made pretty much every single one for the last 10, 15 years. So it's a different life, but I'm glad I live this one, to be perfectly honest.
Agreed.
Guys, let's wrap it up there. Thank you for everyone for jumping on tonight to discuss this one. It's not the most fun discussion in the world, let's be perfectly honest, but I think we actually did it justice and have been able to talk about a few other things along the way, which has been great. So, Dave, thanks for joining us today. Good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great to be back. And let's hope that we can just try and get something next weekend and not end the season on, only one win in 9. If we can just get a win at Luton, we'll all feel a little bit better, won't we? And we'll all enjoy the summer a little bit more. And maybe, another loss over there would just be awful. So yeah, that's the one more thing to look forward to this for the remainder of this season is how Fulham can compete next weekend.
Definitely. Fingers crossed we can actually, get a win, because it feels like it's been a very long time, because it has been a very long time. Dad, thanks for jumping on halfway through and causing a muck, running a muck.
Thanks for letting me in the door. I have to say that I'm really enjoying looking and listening to Dave's new technology every week. I see a little new piece of kit there.
So
Already
Nice
done
little
it.
splash pad.
We've already
Sorry,
done it.
I missed
You weren't
that.
here for the
Okay.
intro.
Well,
If Elton wants to give me a compliment, Sam, I'm all for it. So,
No,
let's
fuck 'em.
keep it
Fuck
going.
'em.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it, Dave. I'm loving it.
Thank you, Elton.
I spend all my time just trying to work out what the various bit of Fulham memorabilia on your back wall actually is. It looks like a black nappy stacker of Fulham FC at the back. I can't quite work it out, but I know
Plastic
it's
bag holder.
Listen, if they did Fulham nappies, Reece would be wearing them for sure. But that's actually a scarf that's just covering a sign that I put up specifically for this pod.
Okay, excellent.
But yeah, there's as you know, there's plenty of Fulham memorabilia throughout my house, much to my wife's enjoyment. So yeah, and soon, now that we've got the That's So Craven shop opening, there's going to be Fulham That's So Craven memorabilia around my house too. So that's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, we're kitting 100 different colours of kids' onesies for you. So we'll know that your little boy is going to be fully kitted out for the foreseeable future.
Fantastic.
Sammy, thanks for joining tonight.
Thanks for having me. Paris actually asked me how would I pitch the pod before I came on today, and I was like, it's literally Jack, Skibby, and Dave talking about football, and me and Dad just talking bollocks. And I'm glad that we made sure that we kept that the standard for tonight. I've had a lovely time as always. I did think before we were going to speak today, crumbs, we're going to talk about a really shit game, but I've had a lovely, lovely time instead.
Well, I'm glad. That's all I care about, Sammy, obviously. Thank you again to everyone who's joined on the live stream. Thanks to everyone who likes and subscribes as always. And as always, come on, you Whites.